Okay, so you've created something in Illustrator and you want to bring it into Figma and make it a button or something like that. It's just whatever you could create. The point here is being that Figma is a little bit limiting as to what you can create, and you might feel more comfortable in a program like Illustrator, but how do I get it in here? So you can't just grab an AI file and bring it in. It'll tell you that's not going to work. What you have to make is an SVG file right here, .svg. You can drag that in, right? And you see that it still preserves the layers. So if we look at this SVG file here, um, I've got my layers right here, the stroke, the gradient, the texture, the button. Um, and so it preserves all that from the original artwork um, in Figma. So let's say you wanted to make a button state that here was your first button state, like before somebody clicked on it. And then when somebody clicked on it, let's go in here and um, let's mess with the gradient. Whoops, wrong one. Okay, let's click in here, grab the gradient, and we'll make it darker. So you see that's what I did here, is I made the purple outer ring a little more clear, and then I made the gradient fill more of the brain so that it gives that hover effect. And let's look at that real quick. So you see when I tap down, the color changes. Same with this button. See how the color changes? So that all starts with making an SVG file. And then from there, you would want to look at Figma making buttons in here in the Figma list of ways to do things. And um, when you have, before you create, it's called a component actually, not a button. So there should be plenty of videos on that. But if we click in here, see how it's giving it these dots here? That's when it's a component. Sorry, the diamond shape. And so I've created a let's see. I've created a tap state. That means when it's being tapped, you see over here, property one, tap, and then a primary state, property one, primary. So when you created a component out of these two states, which I know that there are videos on, then once you create a component, it will be here in your assets. And then you can just drag it in here, and you could say somewhere in your design, I want this to be the primary state, and you would keep it here, or I want it to be the tap state, and then it's there. So that's how you would set up a component, but it starts with a good SVG. So what I discovered, and I'm not an expert on this, but I was drawing and in Illustrator, and I realized that let's see, that I was doing a clipping mask on some of these. So like a clipping mask, let me show you real quick, just in case if you don't know that. So you can create a shape like this, and then you select both of them, right click, and create a clipping mask. So you see how it just clips it like that. Those don't translate well for whatever reason, I don't know, but they don't translate well to being an SVG and then being in Figma. So when I originally drew these brains, they were scattered all over the place outside of this purple edge, but I realized that I needed to clip them all back instead of use a clipping mask. So, like, I'll say this 100 times, you just have to keep trying things, trying things, trying things. Um, so I realized I couldn't use clipping masks, which again you find when you right click, when you have two objects selected. Let's see here. When you have two objects selected, you right click, make clipping mask. Whatever object's on the top is going to be the frame, and whatever object is on the bottom is going to be what's within the frame. So those don't translate well to SVGs, which go into Figma. Also, what doesn't translate well is you see this as a stroke here. If we zoom in on this, this is a stroke that I use the appearance panel and I put multiple strokes on it. Those don't translate well to Figma because when you scale up and down your button, let's say you wanted to make it a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller, the strokes don't stay proportional. So in order to prep my Illustrator file for making an SVG, I saved a new version of it right here. And then if you can see here that I outlined there's no longer a stroke on it. I made it an outline. So the way you would do that, let's come back here and grab something that still has a stroke. Let's put it in here. See how it still has a stroke on it. It's still a stroke. You would go to Object, Expand Appearance. Nope. Looks like you wouldn't do that. You would go to Object, Path, Outline, Stroke. There we go. That's what I did. So you see now it's a solid. There's no stroke on it. So that's how I made these files with no strokes. Okay, so what I did from here is go File, Export, Export As, and I'll name it something unique. I'm not going to use artboard. If I click that artboard, use artboard, it'll do this entire white area. So now if I wanted to do that, like say my art filled that whole area, then that would make sense. But in this case, I just want to export the button. So hit export. Oops, let me call this number 3. Export. I'm not going to adjust any of this, just hit OK. And here we go. Here's that SVG we just made. And we can drag it in here. And it's editable, just like I showed you. Like this. Or like this. And you might be wondering, what file types can I import into Figma? So all I did was go import files to Figma into Google. And then I found this first article, and then I read it. And I noticed that in the editor, you can have vector files as an SVG, and you can have image files like a PNG, a JPEG, and a GIF. Awesome. So if you don't know how to make any of these, then you should look up a video on it. Another thing you might be asking is, how do I prepare my files for After Effects once I'm done in Illustrator? So I created this in Illustrator. As you can see here on the right, I named all of my layers and I broke everything down into a lot of detail. For example, like you've got the arm right here, because I knew that I wanted this shoulder right here to hinge and then this elbow to hinge. You know, I've got like the table here because I knew that I would want that in front of the student. So perspective here matters in terms of how you layer things. So what I would suggest doing is, as I've done, I duplicated this file and I made like a bulbs background, and I deleted everything in here except for my bulb stuff. And then I made a primary, and I deleted everything that wasn't I kept everything that was just the student typing before the brain came apart. And then I had a tap. So like this is when you tap the button. And I determined these are the only layers that are going to change. So I had all this stuff ready. And I also, in here, I outlined everything so that I wouldn't have any problems with strokes. I expanded appearance, and it's all ready to go to After Effects. So if you've purchased Overlord like I have, then this step is pretty easy. You can come up here, grab your artwork. Whoops, that's the background. Grab your artwork here and hit up. And there it is. What you'll do is consult videos that here, like the Motion AE Me. And here I talk in about how to import After Effects files. So watch this video. But the way it would work is like whatever layers you have over here in Illustrator, you can, let's hit save. And then let's go over to After Effects and we'll go File, Import a file. And then we'll find our, where is it in Downloads? And we'll find the Illustrator file we want, which was bulb. And then I'm going to say to import this as a composition. Hit open. And now what it's created is it's created a composition here with the layers already in it. And you see the layers are right here. One thing I should warn you about is that when, let's show you this first. I'm going to isolate the glasses. Nope, that's not going to work. Let's do this. Now, normally when you want to convert an Illustrator layer to create shape from vector, here it'll just, now you can tell that it's a shape in After Effects that you can play around with. It's no longer just a square image. But when it comes to that process with anything that has like a gradient on it or a glow on it that you set up in Illustrator, those things tend to break. So let me show you an example. Here's a glow. I have a laptop glow strong. So I right click and I go create shape layer from vector, and you see how it just grays it out. So for whatever reason, those when you use gradients or glows in Illustrator, they don't translate to After Effects. However, you can make the same effect using gradients in After Effects. Also, I ended up creating them myself in here in Figma. If you open up this example, you have where I just drew it in Figma. So this is how I exported the GIFs. So yeah, I ended up just drawing them in here because I needed this student to be a transparent background. If you'll recall, if you go to the student, you see how it's a transparent background here. So whenever I had the glow on top of it, it didn't look good. So it looked really gross on the edges and it messed up her face. So I just decided to draw them in Figma. And I want to encourage everybody to do comps and comps and comps. And what do I mean by that? So we have this, let's see. We have this bulb video, right? We've seen this. Now let me show you how complex this is. It looks like a big field of light bulbs, right? Let's click into it. Here I've got two compositions. Let's back up for a second. In here we've got 6 compositions and 1 background layer. Then I clicked into that bulb 6A and I've got 2 compositions, background layer, some sound. Click into that. Now we got 12 compositions. All right. Click into this. Now we've got, let's see, 6 compositions. Let's click into that. We've got 6 compositions. Let's click into that. Okay, we're finally at the end. So I animated 1 single light bulb. And then I popped it. So this was bulb 1. It's composition bulb 1. I drug that bulb 1 into here 6 times. And let's see, what did I adjust? I messed with the time remapping through here. And then I took that bulb 2 and drug it in here. Do you see this is bulb 8? I guess my numbers got messed up somewhere. Let's see, what do I adjust in here? Yeah, more time remapping. And probably different positions in the field. Let's see here, what do I adjust? So I drug bulb 8 in here. Oh, I didn't do any keyframes in this one. It's just like a bunch of them spread out. So if we grab this, let's see. Yep, okay, see that chunk there? I'll isolate it. So that's like a whole section of 8. The composition 8 is coming through right there. So then, one more time, it looks like I did some more time remapping to spread them out. And then that results in this final animation that you have access to here, this one. So you can really, they're all the same animation. I just duplicated them and changed their position in the view area, and then I slowed them down or sped them up. Okay, I just had a 20-minute break where my headphones weren't working. So all of that to say, like, you're gonna run into technical problems, and you've got to be a good problem solver if you're gonna work with this stuff. Okay, so something I wanted to show you was these little markers right here. You can create these 1 on the keyboard through 0 just by holding Shift and then clicking the number. Now you might run into an issue in preferences. If you go to 3D, it'll open up the preferences here sometime today. And you want to uncheck this where you can use those Shift 1, 2, 3, 4. And if this is turned on, it won't work correctly. But you can see where you might ask, well, why are those important? Well, I can just hop from pressing 1 to 2 to 3 to 0 to 2 to 4 to 5. So you can see how that would be helpful. So let's jump to 3 real quick. And let's say I only want to export, I only want to render 3 through the end. Well, I could come over here and drag this over like a pilgrim. But what I can actually do is hit the letter B, and that zips it right to where my timeline is. And then let's say I wanted to end it at 5. I could hit 5 and then the letter N, and then it would only export this light gray area. Do you see that? So I'm going to undo that because I want to export this whole area. But I would suggest using those markers as well as the beginning and end. If you ever want to delete one, you can just hover over it and right click and delete it, or delete all of them. All right, so this is the 4th or 5th time I'm attempting to make this video because I keep running into technical problems. So for all of you out there, keep pushing through it, keep looking up things, restart your devices, make sure all the settings are correct, because you will run into technical problems. As I am today, I should have been done with this an hour ago, but I'm sitting here still recording and re-recording. All right, so let's talk about how to export a GIF. So I've already sent you a video on how to export a GIF um, with a solid background, where you would go to Adobe After Effects, File, Export, add to Adobe Media Encoder, and then from there you would select an animated GIF. Like I said, that's a professional video that I've already sent to you. For this, to make an animated GIF with a transparent background, we're going to actually have to add to rendering queue. So let me zoom in on the scene that I want to create. And then I'm going to turn off this glow because we know this glow already doesn't transfer well to a GIF with a transparent background. Oops, it's these down here. Yep. Come back here. There we go. So I'm going to go to File, Export, Add to Rendering Queue. Under Lossless, I'm going to grab next to Channel, RGB plus Alpha. Anytime you see the word alpha, that is usually some kind of transparency. Also in web coding. So you hit OK. And you'll select a location. I'm just going to go to Downloads and hit Save, and then render it. So our .mov file is done rendering out of After Effects. So I'm going to right click it and I'm going to say Open With, and you notice Photoshop is not an option, but I can hit Other, and I can find Photoshop, hit Open. You can hit play and watch it. All right, so now let's say we're ready, we're good with this. It's got a transparent background, we're happy with that. You'll go to File, Export, Save as Web Legacy. And it'll take a really long time to open for some reason right now, which is adding to my technical glitch. There we go, okay. So then you would want to select GIF dither, and there is actually some videos of this up that I've already provided. Yes, here. So let's see. I'm just going to do a little word search. Here we go. How to create a transparent background GIF. I am showing you the steps right now that you could have seen by watching this video. How to export a GIF from After Effects. There you go. So also I sent 2 links out. Let's see, when was that? I sent these out a couple, I think last week, but just in case you're still curious or lost it somewhere, you can Google this article. How can I remove the white pixels around the edges when exporting a transparent GIF? How to make your animated GIF lose that ugly white border or halo. And this is this blog right here. And this blog here. So I show you those because we'll see when this exports, you're probably going to have to go in here and tinker around with the settings until you're happy. So we'll hit save. There we go. So here is our new GIF with transparent background. And you can see there's like a little bit of a halo, like a little bit of white edge right here next to the glasses, white edge on the shoulder, white edge on top of the computer. So you can look at those articles that I've already sent you, and those talk about ways of reducing that edge if you care about it. So next we'll talk about putting it in Figma. Okay, so we've made our GIFs transparent and non-transparent, and we're ready to move this into Figma. So the first thing you're going to want to do in Figma is create a new file and give it a device size, which we've been working with this 375 by 812. And you're going to want to make sure this first frame is that size, which is, here we go, 8 to 12 by 375. There we go. Got our phone frame. And I'm going to grab, see here, I saved my PSD file where I saved my .mov and that I made out of After Effects, and I saved the .psd where I exported this transparent background GIF. So you're just going to drag and drop this in. And you want to make sure that it's inside the frame. Do you see how this is nested inside the frame and not outside the frame? Let's see if I can get it out of there. Here, I could probably just drag it. Nope. There. See how it's outside of the frame now? Now it's inside. So we'll want to make sure it's inside underneath the frame. Square it up. Okay. And then I also made this background one. Now your projects may be different, but this is how I made this one. And I'm going to do the align here. And I'm going to send this one backwards. So now we should have the eating scene on top of the bulb.